In this video, we're going to start writing code which will enable our users to change their user settings. So this includes their username, email address, and password. Okay, so let's go back to our notes page. So to get to our profile page, all we need to do is click on the profile link. At the moment, it doesn't work, and the reason why is because we haven't written anything in the link in the profile. Okay, so all you need to do is go to the href attributes and add profile.php there, because we want to be redirected to profile.php. Okay. All right, now let's save and refresh our page. Try again. Okay, so now we are in the profile page. Okay, so the file responsible for this page is profile.php. So let's open this file from our file FTP. All right. So before we continue, we're going to make a couple of changes. Okay, so the first one is, you see that the profile link is not active at the moment. Okay, so to make it active, we're going to go to the code inside our profile.php file, and instead of having my notes active, okay, as you see right now, we're going to remove the active class from that list item and add it to the profile list item. Okay, like that. So now let's save and refresh the page. Okay, so the second point we need to change here is when you click on My Notes, you want to be directed to the My Notes page. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And the page is main page logged in. Okay, so let's save and make sure it's working. Okay, perfect. Great. All right. All right, now let's start with the username. So if the user wants to change their username, they will click on this table row, and then they will be asked to fill this form. So all they need to provide is their new username. Okay, so once they click on the submit button, we're going to send an AJAX call to a PHP file, which will run a query and change the username in the users table. Okay, so all AJAX calls are going to be written in a JavaScript file that we will link to our profile.php file. So let's go ahead and create this file. So let's call it profile.js. Okay. And let's open it using brackets. So here to start, we're going to have our first AJAX call to a PHP file responsible for updating the username. So AJAX call to update username.php. So that's how we're going to name our PHP file. So let's create this file. Okay. And open it using brackets. right after this AJAX call, we're going to have another AJAX call, this time for updating the password. Okay, so we're going to create another PHP file, update password.php. Okay, I'm going to create .php file. Okay, let's open it using brackets as well. And finally, we're going to have another one. Update email .php. Okay, so let's start with update username.php. So as usual, what we're going to be doing at the beginning, we will start a session and connect to the database. Okay. Then to update the username in our table, we will need the ID of that user before we run the query. Okay, so we're gonna get the ID of that specific user, and then that's gonna be our condition in the query, and then we're gonna look for that specific user with that ID, and then we're gonna change their username. Okay, so we will get the user ID. Okay, so we can get this from the session array, and then we're gonna get the new username, which we'll get through the AJAX call. Okay, and then we're gonna run our query and update the username. All right. All right, so let's go back to our JavaScript file and write our first AJAX call. So to save time, we're going to copy an AJAX call that we created earlier. So we can copy one from mynotes.js. Or to make it even easier, we can go to index.js to get an AJAX call that we created for a form submission. Okay, so I'm going to open index.js. We're going to change the name of this file later on. I'm going to show you why. So let's open this one. And let's copy the first one. Okay, so first of all, we're going to select the form that we're submitting. So basically, we're looking at the username form. So in the profile.php file, the ID of that form is update username form. Okay, so we're selecting that form using its ID, and then we're going to store the data that we'd like to send through AJAX in a variable using the serialize array method. And then after that, we're going to send our AJAX call. So we're going to send the call to update username.php. All right. So the URL is update username.php. We're going to use the post method. Okay. So data to post is going to go inside our parameter data. And then if the AJAX call is successful, we're going to see if this file is going to return something. So if everything goes fine and the query runs okay and the username gets updated, this file is not going to return anything. It's going to send out something only if something wrong happens. So in that case, we're going to store whatever is returned by our PHP file inside the data variable. So if data, then we're gonna show an error message inside the error div. So if you remember, the error div for this form was placed right there, right after edit username. So here it is. Okay, so actually instead of logging message, we're going to say something else. It says login because it was a copy paste as we made earlier. So I'm going to call this update username message. Okay, and that's the message we're going to get from our PHP file if something goes wrong. So the ID, let's give it an ID, update username message. Username message. Okay, so let's save. So basically the div to select is update username message. Okay, now if everything goes fine and the query is successful, the username is going to get updated inside our users table. All right, but we're not going to see anything happening here on our page. So to see the change, we want to see the username, which is displayed right there, changing to the new value. So to do this, all we can do is reload the page. Okay, so if data, we're going to execute that statement, else we're going to reload the page. So to do this, it's location dot reload. All right. Now, if something goes wrong and the AJAX call itself is not successful, then we're going to display an error message saying that there was an error with the AJAX call. So the ID of the div where we're going to display that message is the same as this one. Okay. All right, so let's save this. And then let's go to our PHP file and write some PHP code. So first, to start the session, it's going to be session underscore start. Okay. And then to connect, we're going to include our connection file. Which is connection.php. Okay. All right, now let's get our user ID. So we're going to store it inside a variable ID, and we're going to use the session array. Okay, and the key here is user ID. Just a quick reminder, this is where we stored the user ID in the login.php file right after logging the user in. Okay, so now let's get our username. So we're going to store the username inside a variable username. Okay, so we can get the username from the post array. Okay, as we use the post method with the Ajax call. So to get the key, let's have a look at our username field. So the name of that field is username. All right, just a quick change here. The label goes for username, not login email. That was a quick copy paste. So here we go. And finally, we're gonna run, or we're gonna create our query. So let's store it inside a variable SQL. So the syntax for our query is going to be update our table, which is users, and we're going to set the username to the new value. Okay, so we're going to use the variable username for that. And the condition is where user ID matches that ID. Okay. All right. Now let's store the results in a result variable. So we're going to run the query using the MySQL query function, which will take a couple of parameters again, our link variable, where we store the connection, and our query. All right, now we're going to check if the query has been successful. So if opposite of results, okay, which means results returns false, then we're going to echo an error message. All right, so let's echo something like there was an error updating the or storing the new username in the database. Okay, so let's give our div a couple of classes, alerts and alerts danger. All right, let's add a semicolon on there and close our PHP tag. Okay,